Hi! So it's been quite a while since I've been on here and did a video. The last time I was on here I think was the last week of September, and I was gearing up to do a whole week of mental health videos for Mental Health Awareness Week, and then I injured my knee and have been out of commission ever since. So I tore my meniscus, I had to have surgery. I still have a bionic leg situation going on here with a brace, and I have crutches and have to have 3 months of physical therapy. Getting ready to do Zumba one day turned out to be quite the episode. So yeah, ever since then I've kind of just been healing and trying to get back to my normal self as quick as possible so I can get back to chasing a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old. On to the important stuff. I thought I would include a little bit of an update considering I started doing videos every week and then disappeared for a good 6 weeks or so. In my last video I said I was gonna do a whole week's worth of mental health videos for Mental Health Awareness Week, and that kind of got pushed off to the wayside, but I'm still gonna do all those topics. I don't think we need a week in October to shine a light on the importance of mental health. It should be a topic that can be discussed at length all year round. So I am going to still talk about how to find a therapist, postpartum depression, agoraphobia, I'm still not pronouncing that right, and all these topics. But today's video, like the description says, like the title says, is about my postpartum depression experience. I did briefly talk about postpartum depression in my longer anxiety and depression story, which I can link down below. I did that a while ago, I think over a year ago, a year and a half, 2 years ago now. I was first made aware of Mental Health Awareness Week that year, so in an effort to kind of get that bigger message out there, I thought I would throw a video up there. It's not very good production quality or any of that, but that's not, what matters. So here I am, kind of half done. Got my Woman Up shirt on. Can't really see all of it because it's cut off, so that's a little bit awkward. It just says woman. And did my face, didn't do my hair because haven't mastered doing my hair on one leg yet, but these videos aren't really about looking totally fat. Here we go, postpartum depression. This is not a super cheery topic to talk about, so I feel a little bit weird trying to be high energy while talking about it, because going through postpartum depression for me was, I think, the lowest part of my entire life. So I know how serious of a matter it is. I know it is earth-shattering. It's very, very difficult. When I had Ella, I still had a lot of unresolved issues when it came to anxiety and depression. I was having panic attacks, but at that point I still didn't even really know they were panic attacks. I hadn't really been diagnosed with anything. I hadn't been on any medicine for any sort of mental health thing in my life. I had kind of just been like going through the pattern of life, dealing with whatever I thought was normal at that point in time. Did high school, worked, went off to college, was in a relationship with my now husband, and I seemed to be functioning like as, best as I could, but I definitely had panic attacks. I had these low points, and I wasn't even really sure what it was. So when I had Ella, I sunk into a pretty bad bout of postpartum depression quickly. It was the hormones, the trauma that my body had just gone through. It was getting married and then having a baby right after, not being around friends, not being around my family. It was just a lot all at once. I had quit my job to take care of her because daycare didn't make sense for us with the cost in Southern California. Tim was working full-time. He had only had 1 week of paternity leave, including the time we were in the hospital. So it was me and little tiny Ella, just the two of us, very early on and with no help. So it was isolating, it was challenging, and I kind of was thrown in the trenches no lifeboat to help me out. When I went to my first postpartum checkup after I had Ella, my doctor asked me how I was doing, you know, baby blues and all this stuff. And it was kind of a passing question. You know, she didn't have one of those surveys where you actually had to take the time and reflect on how you were really feeling. Those surveys can be actually pretty detailed and very helpful if you're experiencing any sort of postpartum depression. I took the one that I had after I had Archie very seriously, after going through everything I went through with Ella. Since it was just a passing question and I was such a new mom, I felt so guilty of saying anything other than, I'm okay, you know, my baby's great, I'm feeling great, breastfeeding is so easy, thanks for asking. It was a very key moment in my postpartum depression battle, because I think if I had been forced to fill out a survey, it would have been approached and tackled and figured out much earlier on, and it wouldn't have spiraled into this crazy year and a half battle of trying to get my mental health stable and under wraps. So when did I first start noticing signs that something was really wrong? I'll tell you. I tried breastfeeding. Now, if you've been following me for a decent amount of time, I have been a little vocal about breastfeeding. I had a very difficult time doing it. The challenges of breastfeeding were another key part in me kind of spiraling into this very low depression. I had a very difficult time doing it. I've been on the record as saying that I thought it was more painful than giving birth. I thought that it was the best thing to do for my baby. And some people will say that, you know, until they're blue in the face, that breastfeeding is the ultimate best thing you can do for your baby. I would say you being mentally healthy is probably the best thing you can be for your baby when they're first born. But I tried with my whole being to get good at breastfeeding, to be able to breastfeed my daughter, but it just wasn't happening. I'm not really sure what had happened. I had a lot of problems, and I ended up committing to pumping around the clock. So I would schedule schedule my alarm, so I would wake up every 2 hours and pump. And as you can imagine, with a newborn, aside from the feedings, because I wasn't nursing at that point, I was dedicated to pumping. And as you can imagine, getting up every 2.5 hours to pump got really challenging and painful, and I was already sleep deprived, and I didn't acknowledge my breaking point. I kept pushing myself and pushing myself. And to where I remember this scene very clearly, where I was on the couch, and I had Ella, and I had tissues, just used tissues everywhere from crying, and I had like this much of breast milk that I had successfully pumped, and we gave her that, and she was still hungry, and it was just this total and utter moment of feeling completely defeated. Like I just cannot do this. So I stopped breastfeeding, and I just cut the ties, and she was strictly formula fed from a couple months on, maybe even a month, I don't remember. It was pretty quickly after she was born. And that was that. I noticed after I stopped breastfeeding her that I started actually feeling connected with Ella. The breastfeeding was so painful and such a mentally challenging thing for me that it was not a bonding experience for me. I dreaded feeding her. I dreaded when she would get hungry next. So it was after that I transitioned her into formula that I really started to feel good and connected and enjoyed feeding her, and that's when I started to feel a bond. So I kind of left all that stuff that I had experienced, all those feelings that I experienced breastfeeding, and just didn't really acknowledge them. I thought I was maybe just feeling that way due to the challenges of breastfeeding, maybe baby blues. So I didn't acknowledge it. I didn't think anything of it. As I kind of continued, as the months went by, I noticed more and more warning signs of postpartum depression. I would count down the hours until Tim got home. And then I would count down the hours until I could go to bed. And then the next day when it was morning, I didn't want to get out of bed. It felt like I had, 1,000 rocks on my back and I had to get up out of bed and carrying that load, literally. I would hide a lot. I would, not like, okay, that sounds weird, but I would go in our bed and just sob, cry, and not be able to control it. I would go in the bathroom and cry. I mean, it was I started to realize, like, this is not normal. But one of the biggest things that stuck out to me, I think, is when three of my best friends came out to see me and Tim and Ella when she was, I think, 3 months old. And these people who came out to see me, they're like my family. The girls are like my sisters. I have always felt most comfortable and most like myself just around them. They're very much like, they're my family. And so when they came out and I felt like I couldn't be a mom in front of them, like I couldn't go out with Ella confidently with them, I started feeling like uneasy, like something's off here. Like I should feel okay. Like I should feel confident enough to go out with Ella with these people. Like I know they'll help me. I know they'll be there to support me or get a bottle ready or anything, but I couldn't get to that point. I made Tim take the time off work. Tim took the time off work anytime that my friends were there and we went out during the day. I could not be alone with Ella. It made me severely anxious, like beyond panic attack status. To go out with her alone, I would shake, I would sweat. Just have a panic attack. I couldn't go on walks with her, just around the block. Little by little, I was starting to be confined just in my apartment. I couldn't leave my apartment. I wouldn't go driving anymore. Anytime I started getting in the car to go drive, I would have a panic attack and turn around. And more, it just kept spiraling out of control. I can't even remember how old Ella was when I was officially diagnosed, but it was after she was months old. My breaking point was just out of frustration. I didn't really have some crazy mental breakdown. I wasn't really, mentally overwhelmed in the moment that I realized I need to get help. It was more out of sheer frustration. I had been to the ER for panic attacks, I think 3 or 4 times at that point. Ella only had been months old. We dragged Ella with us when she was like 6 months old or 4 months old to the ER at 3 a.m. because I woke up and I thought I was having a heart attack, typical panic attack freak out. I went to urgent care. I went to the ER more than once, and finally I was like, I just can't function like this. This is not living. This is not life. I have a newborn. I have a husband. I don't know what is going on, but this is not me. This is not normal. I need to get my butt in a therapist chair because I have to be emotionally available for my daughter and my husband. And that was that. Got online, Googled therapist San Diego, and did some research, found one, got formally diagnosed, and started my journey from there. Excuse me. I don't know if it's emotions or the fact that I haven't talked this much in the past 6 weeks, but my voice is a little out of it. The topic of postpartum depression can be so scary for a few reasons. One, I don't want to talk about this and scare somebody who's pregnant right now and it's their first child. You could have your baby and you could be on cloud 9 and not sink into postpartum depression, not have it. There were a lot of factors at play, especially not having an ounce of a support system close by, that really made for me to get postpartum depression. 2, after a woman experiences postpartum depression, they could easily decide to not have another kid because it's so traumatizing. I gotta say, I get it. I understand. It's unreal experiencing something like that. A psychologist has actually told me that a lot of women do opt out of having more kids after they have one and have gone through postpartum depression because they just don't want to go through it again. There is help that you can get for postpartum depression, postpartum depression is not the end of the world, although it very much feels like it is when you're going through it. There is a light at the end of the tunnel when you're going through something like that. I promise you. So I understand the anxiety toward having another kid and potentially facing postpartum depression again. I can tell you that I didn't have postpartum depression really at all after I had my second. You know, I went through the typical baby blues, but there's a very distinct difference between baby blues and postpartum depression. Baby blues, I think, is a little bit more fleeting, and it's not as intense, crippling, all-consuming, all of that stuff. And I have often, and I still feel guilty about having postpartum depression with one kid and not with the other. It's just mom guilt. It's something that I should not feel guilty for. It's something that I cannot change. It's something that I could not change back then, but it's just, it's that ache in a mom's heart where I think, you know, Ella deserved a mom who was just totally present and there and in love right from the very get-go. And I was just detached and numb and empty and kind of this shell, and I really needed to work hard to get over all of that stuff and get through it before I really started to feel emotionally connected and there and in love with my kid. And that sounds so dirty to say. I feel guilty. I feel guilty that was the first however many months of my daughter's life. I feel guilty that she did not have a mom who was just over the moon dancing with a new baby. And you know, people will say, well, she won't remember it, she won't that. I understand all of this. I mean, I've been to therapy, I've worked through it, but I still feel guilty. You know, I have my second baby, and I'm so sentimental about him getting older, and I've just noticed these things that these new feelings that I have with my second that I didn't have with my first. And the only reason why I didn't have with my first was because I was going through a lot of mental illness stuff. If I were gonna tell a new mom anything, I would tell her to take care of yourself. Do not forget about yourself. Do not feel guilty for one thing that you feel in the first months of being a new mom. You're stronger than you think, you're braver than you think, you're more courageous than you think, you're a superhero. And I kind of wish someone would have told me that. You know, I really feel like I was kind of thrown in the trenches, a little unprepared, and I know you can never really be totally prepared to have a baby, but people can help. People can help in preparing you. And if you're pregnant, or if you want kids one day, and if you're just a little uneasy about any, you know, postpartum depression or the pregnancy or anything, you're strong. You can get through it. Postpartum depression is not some beast to be scared of. It's something that you can tackle, and there is help out there, and that help that is out there, you should not be ashamed to take advantage of it. I will end on a positive note because this is so depressing. I'm pretty comfortable in saying that postpartum depression actually saved my life, my mental health life. Since I had so many unresolved anxiety and depression issues, I don't think if it weren't for having Ella and having postpartum depression and literally forcing myself into a therapist chair, that I would ever have dealt with any mental thing that I had been dealing with since I was in grade school. It was the hardest time of my life, but it was also one of the absolute biggest blessings that those challenges have made me resilient and strong, and I am proud of the person that I've become because of going through that. And so if you're in the middle of the dark, cold, awful tunnel and you can't see the light yet, I promise you there's a light. Okay guys, that's my take on postpartum depression. Let me know in the comment section if there's a topic that I mentioned that you want me to talk about more in depth, my experience with or whatever, I'd be happy to talk about it. I know it's a loaded video, and I feel like I was a little bit jumbled and rambling and all this stuff. It's my first video in weeks, so I'm a little kind of all over the place, and my knee is aching. So this is going up on Tuesday. I want to get back into my normal routine of having a video go up every Tuesday. Look out for more videos on mental health. I'll see you later. Bye.